Hello and welcome to Mind and Mead. This is a new series called Dungeon Talks. My name is Sebastian and I am sat here with the one and only from How Not to Summon a Podcast, Lee Grayson.
Well, what's up, Scooby Gang?
So today this is going to be kind of like a pilot episode. We're going to talk about our history and our love for Dungeons and Dragons, TTRPG, role-playing, tabletop games. The idea that I thought was you've had years and years of experience, very, very new to it, and it's just to hopefully bring people in to this hobby, this life almost of it's okay to start even at such a late time. And I think there's been a lot of people that have started this at such a young age.
Like me. I started playing, I think I was about 10.
Sure. So I'm probably like 20 years later.
Yeah.
But this is the thing, it's definitely become more popular as of recently.
Absolute mainstream hobby.
Yeah.
So it should be.
No, and that's it. I think because I see on TikTok a lot of times as well, there's a lot of people where they're going, oh, you've only just started playing because of Stranger Things.
The gatekeeping.
Yeah, and it's bullshit at the end of the day. I think it's good. It took me years to watch Stranger Things, but when I realized, oh, that's what they're doing, I was like, this is just amazing. And then I think after that, I met you.
Yeah.
Never played it. Never even thought of playing it. I've always been more into my Magic or card games and stuff like that. Never really tried the role-playing aspect. And then you came over ours and you played a couple sessions of your campaign, and time constraints was the hardest thing for us.
Getting everyone together. It's the worst thing about D&D because you need to put aside hours and hours and hours, and everyone needs to be on the same time schedule. It's hard to do.
No, and that's it. For us, it kind of fizzled away a little bit, but it got to a point where I was like, no, I want to play, but I know it's difficult to try and get you guys at a time, like you just said, getting everyone on that same page. So I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna take my hand.
I'll do it myself.
I will be the DM. I nominate myself. Oh shit!
It's the best side of the table to be on for me. I love DMing. I'm a player. I'm kind of lackluster. There are better players than me. One of them is on my podcast. Well, Sheeny is the best D&D player I know of because he leans so heavily in and has so many ideas that I will never come up with as a player.
Well, that's the thing. I just not a shameless plug, but I just finished your DC campaign, The Outsiders.
Yep. I wrote that.
That was about 2/3 of the way. I think it was just the way my brain was going. I was like, I fucking know who it is. I could see where this is going. But I like the idea of who you had as your main villain at the end. Rather, again,
you can throw spoilers out there. It's Alfred.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool the way you used the AI aspect of it, and it's just controlling, and you controlled my words and
Damien.
Because it's just like when you went to Africa, and it was like, don't say my son's name.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, it's just fucking found it. Just tell him.
You got to lay clues down. I lay them on a bit thick, I think, sometimes, but if you don't, then the story doesn't travel and your players don't get that reward of, I've worked this out.
Yeah.
So you got to balance that knife right there.
Sorry, as also part of the Mind and Mead series, we always crack open a bottle of mead and give it a go. This week is one of my brews of spice mead. What do you think of it?
It's gorgeous.
It's gorgeous. You can berate it. You don't have to. It can be.
The sweetness is a bit lacking, but that chili in there is pucker. That's like the perfect level because it doesn't offend your tongue, but the back of your throat, there's like a nice, that same warmth you get from a good curry. Yeah, it's like right at the back of your throat, and it just
it could be a little bit thicker.
You're not coughing it up, going. No. Kind of panting with heat. It's a gorgeous colour.
It came out quite nicely, I must admit.
It's a gorgeous colour. Clarity's like,
because obviously you can see the bottle that I've put it in.
Yeah, the black bottle.
I can't see how it's colouring or clearing out, but it's actually cleared out quite nicely, I must admit.
This is... I mean, I did homebrew for a while, but I made beers, and this is clearer than anything I ever made. It looks stunning. So like, as a colour, it's beautifully golden. There's no sediments or anything in there. Like, stunning. Absolutely stunning.
I'm pleased with it. I'm probably not going to be able to remake it, but I'll do my best again.
Honestly, could be a little sweeter being a mead.
I think
but
I would.
That chili level, don't change that at all, because that is perfect.
So these are just normal like red and green chilies from the supermarket. There's no like special one. The next chili mead I'm going to make is the Carolina Reaper one. Ooh.
Yeah. I can already feel it in my gut. My bowels are going, no.
Well, I've seen a couple of people who use only like a quarter of the chili, and then they go from there.
That's kind of all you need. Rub it on food, it destroys your insides.
Well, thank you for that. I think that's a nice little feedback on that. But back to being part of the dungeon world. What is your... I already know what it is, but what got you into being into dungeons?
Oh God, where I started. So I was I'm originally from Yorkshire, moved down south to Norfolk, and didn't really have any friends. Brand new to the area, brand new to high school. Was massively into comic books. My older brother read like Judge Dredd and 2000 AD, Tank Girl and stuff like that, so I got massively into them. And that nerd culture just kind of accidentally grabbed me back in the 90s. And I was lonely at school, so I was like, well, I've got to have clubs or something. And I found a D&D club running second edition. So it was one of the teachers that ran it. I went in as a player. Played it for about 2 years, and then the club kind of disappeared. But was hooked, was constantly trying to find another club. And then kind of stopped playing because there was just no one to play with, being in a small ass village in the arse end of nowhere and being like 10 years old, 11 years old. You don't really have travel arrangements unless your parents are willing to do it. So came back into it around 3.5, around college time. I found that was everyone was kind of playing Yu-Gi-Oh and stuff like that, and tried it, but it just didn't scratch that creative itch that D&D does. Like, I love the competitiveness of card games,
and then that's it. The card games are very much I need to win.
Massively competitive, and I love that. D&D hits different. Like, played well, D&D just scratches an itch that no other game will do. Other tabletops in general will scratch that itch, not specifically D&D, but that was pretty much the most popular one until Pathfinder came about and a few others. There was some other tabletop games that were swinging around, but none of them took off like D&D did already. It was the original. It had the market share. Left college, stopped playing again, got back into it when I actually started playing the Age system, which is a rival to D&D by, I want to say Mephisto Studio or Mofaristo Studio, something like that. It was based on Dragon Age, the video game. I was with someone that really loved Dragon Age. I really love tabletops. I found this and I was like, that's two birds, one stone right here. Like, I can grab people in because everyone's playing Dragon Age. I want to play tabletop games. Brilliant system until you get to level 5, and then it becomes the worst system ever invented. The Reddit is simply just like constant fixes to that system all the way through. And I haven't stopped playing since then. So it's been a good 10, 12 years of a constant run of tabletop games.
I think that is one of the things. I think once anybody does get started in the sphere, depends on who you are, but it's kind of very hard to get out of it. I would definitely say, obviously for myself starting such late time, easier than what it could have potentially been back then. Like you were just saying that you found it very difficult to find that group of people.
Yeah.
We didn't have the internet and
No,
social media.
it was literally like put a notice on a board and hope someone replies to it. Most of the time, it just got scribbled on by jocks and the cool kids.
Whereas now we've got people who go on Discord. You can let's play groups. You can find people if you just really want to just get in the nitty gritty of it.
Digital D&D is an absolute masterpiece. Absolute masterpiece of technology.
I think it's one of those things. It's like we said about the gatekeeping, is keeping it open. It's going off what you were saying, how you can just kind of put your, I would imagine to say, like your soul into it almost. When I took over and I thought, forget it, I'm going to create my own world. I'm going to go into it. I spent probably about 1.5 years before I even thought it was somewhat
hard, dude. It's hard.
It's
creating something that is actually original and not running. I mean, everyone should start on a pre-built campaign. Most of them are shocking. Most of them require a lot of homebrew to fix. It's very famous in 5th edition that they are just shit. There's like a few good examples. Stormwreck Isles is a good one. Phandalin is okay. There's a few tweaks you need to make to it, but most of it runs itself. And they're great entries to being a DM.
Yeah.
Most of the other campaigns are shocking. Strahd is probably an exception because it's designed to be open plan.
Yeah.
The rest of them are crap. Like, we ran Ice Spire Peak.
Okay.
And it was so boring and so terrible. The current group I play with, that's what I started DMing for them. They were new to D&D. They played one other campaign, but not really delved into what D&D could be. I love emotional D&D. I love that battles and stuff like that are cool, but I love emotional role play, like when you are the character, you get attached.
Of course.
Ice Spire Peak was shocking. We got 3 sessions in. Not a lot was happening, so I diverted the entire campaign. The homebrewed, used the beginning of that, homebrewed the rest.
Yeah.
And it was much better. Like, I read forward. Obviously, you read the book first, and it was just bad. Bad. But
I think that's also what could be considered a good DM is finding, when you see those moments happening, being able to change.
Yeah. React to your players.
Yeah. And there's the thing is, a lot of people, I think there's that fear element of when you first start out, I have to read the book. Personally, for the books, for me, even the Stormwreck Isles, maybe it's because of the way that I read things, but I find it very difficult to read the D&D books. I can't follow it to go, and in my mind it just doesn't make sense. Because I've read the books, I'm like, oh, cool, the story's great, and it's like, oh, at this point, then it's like, it doesn't feel natural to me. So that's why I thought, forget it, I'm making my own. So what?
Very much the response for all 5 ebooks. They're not very well written, which is you're writing a book. I'm currently writing my first book. I wanted it to be linear for the DM, throwing some tips in here and there, so that there is always the answer you want is always on the page you're on.
Yeah.
Rather than, I've got to rewind to page 30 again.
Yeah. And
I've got to go to page 56 to find this NPC again. It's like, nope.
It's there.
It's right there.
Whatever's happening in this encounter, you've got it at your fingertips.
Yeah. It makes the books bigger, but I think the payoff is immeasurable.
That's the thing, is that the way I'm sort of laying it out at the moment, because I've changed it since I showed you last. I've separated it because I was getting a little bit annoyed. I'm starting to create like more of a settings book. Gone down the nasty rabbit hole of creating so many NPCs. Because I need to keep myself regimented of going, okay, no, this is now campaign. I need to work on that part in the campaign. Act 1, there's the task. This is what the goal is. Here are your bounties if you so choose to have them. And it's there, boom. It's in your face for the DM to read, and you go, oh, we're going to do this bounty? Okay, here it is. Here's the step-by-step. What's the quest for it? What's the potential outcomes? And what I've noticed that a lot of people, especially on YouTube, because I've been using YouTube and as much as I possibly can to help myself.
Learn from other DMs.
Yeah.
We all do it. I still do it.
And then they always say, it's like, I see a lot of people saying don't prep or do prep, or there's lots of conflicting
know
answers.
Your story. Apart from that, I don't make notes. I don't prepare characters because it never goes to plan.
No.
Ever. Your players will throw a wrench in the works and it will veer off 50 miles away from where you wanted it to be. So understand the fundamental rule that I find is if you understand the story from beginning to end and all the key points of that story, regardless of where your players go, you can get it on track again and naturally not force them to do so. Like there's a fine line between like railroad campaigns and linear campaigns, and linear campaigns they have a beginning, a middle and end, and it's the DM's job to understand all the points in that to make it work. Railroads are we'll stick to the mission, don't deviate from the mission.
You're not doing shopping, you're not going
that person's not, like when your characters bump into NPCs they're not supposed to talk to, there's DMs out there will go, they don't want to talk to you. It's like, that's lazy. Be creative and inject some creativity into the story that you now know so well.
But I think that's is going off the aspect, and a lot of people will find it quite scary to do a lot of the improv stuff. However, if you do know your story, if you know exactly, even if in my mind, because my world's not fully fleshed out, it's going to take a while. However, what I've wanted is so that the world can always be played. Similar to how Strahd is, you can have multiple playthroughs.
What you should do is...
But it's what happens with these guys. It's going to change.
It's a footnote.
Yeah, they will impact history in the world.
Yeah.
So they, like I said to you, they didn't wreck it. It's not the right word, but it's like, I had a plan. It's like, okay, well, here's a couple bounties, get them into it, because they're all new players as well. So it's like new DM with new players. Let's figure it out. That's what's happening.
There's no wrong answers. Like, you're going to get rules wrong. Don't worry about it. You're going to make your own rules. Don't worry about it. You're going to see rules in the book that you don't agree with. Change them. Don't worry about it.
No, and that's the thing. I think for me, it's been very much more, because there's been a couple of times where I'm like, I don't know, but then I'm like, does it work in this situation, what this person is trying to do? And then my brain just goes, think like a human. It's like, is it going to work? Would it work? Sort of thing. And then if I go, I go, okay, let's go. Let's have a roll for it, see how effective you are.
Even if it doesn't work, let them roll. Unless they get an nat 20. Even then, on ability checks, it does fuck all. So don't worry about it. Unless they roll a perfect roll, just tell them it doesn't work.
Yeah, no, that's it. It's
or roll behind. Like, the cheapest trick in the book for every DM is for the DM to roll behind the screen and then lie through their teeth. Just absolutely lie through their teeth, because you're aiding storytelling, and that's the key factor.
Bringing them out of their comfort zone, I think, is one thing. It's like, time to relax. Be someone new. Be who you truly want to be. Be that little voice inside your head that says obscene shit. Do it. What's the worst that can happen, sort of thing. A PKO.
When I then said that, PKO. I've had it happen. It was tough.
So I had my party were to find one of my artifacts in one of the cities. They're not going to listen anyway. My beginning city, one of my artifacts is there. They chose to disregard it. Even though I was trying to like lay the subtle hints of like, this is where it could be. It's without going, it's over there.
Without a North Star beacon.
But then they completed one of the missions where they acted like really power mummy parents, and they went a little bit sexualized. And I'm like, okay, fine, no worries, let's do that. But then they went into a zone that I hadn't created yet properly. It was always intended to get there.
They just got there early.
Yeah, they jumped ahead in the sense, but now they've gone down the more evil, chaotic evil route rather than fight for justice. Good.
See, alignments for me are a big problem. Like you mentioned, chaotic evil and justice and everything else. Alignments for me are for newer players to understand their character more. Alignments change all the time based on experience and what that person goes through. Someone might offers, lawful good and then see the actual shit in the world and become lawful evil or chaotic or some other variation. Alignments aren't something that I tend to ignore. I don't tell my players to do it. Don't pick one. Just know your character, know what they would do, and then once you've settled into that character, the experiences will change you, and I expect you to change.
Yeah, because again, like the same aspect of what you're trying to do with yours is get that emotional, that capture, that like be hooked on the story. Yeah. I want to feel almost tug at your heartstrings kind of emotion. It's like be invested in your character.
Yeah.
Feel the moments, feel the wins, feel the losses, feel when shit goes wrong.
Which is difficult to do, in my opinion. No wrong answers with D&D, but in my opinion, it's difficult to do that, be invested when you don't have the freedom to be your character, because a year after playing, you still have to obey chaotic good.
Yeah, and I think at the beginning levels, so maybe 1 to 3 or however many sessions it takes.
I'd say it comes with experience. Like newer players, alignments are almost a necessity because you want them to understand you're not playing you.
Yeah.
But you're playing a bit of you, and I want you to concentrate on these parts of your character, what you look like, what your ability, what class you are, because it will have an effect on the world and how people react to you. And how you react is based on your alignment.
Yeah.
And it makes perfect sense. It doesn't make perfect sense
to stay
3 months down the line when you slaughtered an entire cave of kobolds that were just trying to chill out, or you saved a town from burning down even though you were the bad guy. Like you would gain hope, you would gain evil, you would fluctuate. D&D doesn't allow for that, so I just ignore it. Just get rid of alignments.
Yeah. Because your alignment is then that's it. It's stuck. It's
a static thing. And
it's not a human nature type of. And we're playing with humans. We're not playing a game. We're not playing. So I still haven't finished Baldur's Gate 3 yet, but it's not playing that where there's only so many options that you can do.
Yeah.
There has to be that element of freedom. There has to be that element of humanity when it comes to playing. And I think that's why I like the idea of the roleplay side more than the combat side. And like you said, there is no wrong way. If you want combat, let's do bloody combat.
Combat in 5e is iffy. Like I've played every version since 2nd edition.
Yeah.
And 2nd edition was dog shit, don't get me wrong. 3.5 was much better. 4 everyone ignored. It lasted like a couple of years, and even then, once it sold out, not many other prints were done. 5 is just not it's so bogged down and lazily done, especially at the high levels when you get like paladins at level 12 and above, and they're like, oh, I hit them, oh, I've hit, okay, I'll smite, and then I'll just gonna roll again because my reaction allows me to do this, and I hit, cool, another smite, and you get like 5 rolls in one attack, and it's just like, no, dude, no. Like, let's get this fight over and done with, because each paladin's round is taking fucking 10 minutes to do.
Yeah.
And then you get the bad guys that get like 2 actions and then a lair action, and then, they get to choose their fucking special ability that they get to spend points on, and it's just like, it's so bogged down in 5.
Yeah, I did notice that even when I was creating, because I'm trying to create my own characters for the campaign. So I've got some legendary characters in there, but it's, again, coming from the new aspect, is I kind of understand the whole aspect of it, but like you said, it is very much bump, this is it, we do this, we do that, we very regimented. But the one thing that I don't really like, one thing I don't like about D&D, and I understand why it's there, because it is that strategy kind of gameplay.
It started off as a war game.
Yeah, it makes sense, but it doesn't feel natural in the terms of like spell slots. I get it. You got 1 spell slot, you got 1 action. And I know that a turn is supposed to be like 6 seconds. It's very short. It's very it's an amalgamation of like a 5-minute fight or however long it is. But when you've then run out of your spell slots, it's almost like, oh, okay, I have no real negative effect apart from the fact is I cannot cast a spell anymore. There's nothing that's hindering you. It's just, oh no, I've run out of magic. Almost like games where you run out of mana or whatever it is, but yet you can restore that. You get a regeneration. So one of the things that I said to the table was like, because they're all spellcasters in their own right, I'm like, yes, if you run out of a spell slot, fine. But I'm not going to hinder you in that aspect. However, you will have a disadvantage when it comes to it. Like the way I've thought of doing it is like, say level 1 spell, you got no more left and you want to cast another one. You roll a d20, starts off at a low DC, but then you get an exhaustion level on top of it every time you go for it. And each time it's harder and harder. I think I haven't quite figured out the levels yet because they've not been in a situation where they've needed to use that.
Yeah.
But if I could figure out how to make it feel more natural, because I can't imagine if you go into the fantasy world, it's like, oh, I've ran out of magic. You're supposed to be this wizard.
Well, that's why they have... this was a problem in early D&D, which is why they brought in cantrips, which are free-to-use spells as many times as you want. The problem is that none of them are that big, except for, the obvious ones that can become overpowered, like Eldritch Blast and stuff like that. They have potential within 5e to be the most powerful spell there is. But the problem you're going to run into is they won't, if you allow them to do that, and there's probably a right way to do it, it will take a little bit of thought, is I would keep a constant DC and have them have to roll maybe an 18 or above naturally to be able to cast a spell in exchange for that energy coming from somewhere else.
Yeah,
so maybe
there needs to be a negative
health
effect.
Pool or even like if you did a straight trade-off where if, when you roll the d20 to cast a spell, if it's not a saving throw for the enemy, then their result is what they take out of their hit points.
What do you mean? Well, like the D20 result?
Yeah, so the D20 result. So,
okay, so if they succeed,
in early levels, they'll think twice about doing it. At high levels, like when they're 60, 70, 80 HP, they'll get a few extra spells in, but it'll come at the cost of their own well-being. So I'd probably play around with it that way because it's more dangerous.
Well, that's the thing,
and will require them to still manage a mana pool effectively, because that's what spell slots are, which is perfect description of them, like you say. They'll still have to manage that. It's just that pool switches over from mana to their own life.
To be honest, I do quite like it. It reminds me, I don't know if you've seen the film, is it Covenant? So the concept of the movie, if you have seen it, you may have, but basically there's like a family of 5, and they have access to powers. But when they use a power, it drains them of their life. So their eyes go black and they can kind of do anything that they think of. But for every time they use it, and however strong that is, it drains them of years of their life, and they age a lot quicker.
Right.
So they're not immortal, but they can basically they can be like 20 years old and look like a 70-year-old. Yeah,
because they've overspent their abilities.
They've used their powers in excess to the point where it's like it's now killing you. So the idea of, you've got to be at a certain DC. If you do, you're also going to lose life.
Yeah. And I think it'd just be a good fun way to do it. Definitely an interesting way. It might not work, but if you had, say, like a wizard on, 20 HP left, 18 HP, let's say, and then it could be like the big hero hurrah moment, that one last swing, this is all I've got.
And then they use up whatever is near enough brings them to death.
Yeah. And I think they could go down, but they could also get the spell off and have this huge heroic moment of fuck you to the bad guy.
And that's it. It's
which would aid in what I say D&D is all about, the storytelling and the role-playing aspect. If you had a wizard that knew this would cost them their life, then
it's a choice. They need to make a choice right now. And this is the thing. I'm trying to, and again, the table that I'm playing with, like I said, it's playing with a table full of ADHD people.
You're doing a podcast with two of them right now.
Yeah, they're all over the place, and I love it. I absolutely love it because it's keeping me on my toes and basically forcing me into being better at my improv. It is. I have to be with them.
The improv's the hard part, I think. Like the rest of D&D comes naturally, especially if you've got, like, I think ADHD is a brilliant tool to have under your belt for D&D because you can. Your mind moves so quick and you have an answer for everything so quickly that there's no time missed. There's no, I just need to check the book. There's no, let me come up with a name for this character.
No, I'm just doing it.
It just does it. It just happens, like, naturally. There's no table needed because you've got that information in the back of your brain and your brain goes, you want it? Cool, here it is.
Here it is.
Have it and mix it with this. And it's like, on our podcast, we've got two DMs, which is me and Sheeny. My DM style is much different to Sheeny's DM style when he does The Witcher.
Yes.
But I would say I'm a better DM. But
just stab that in the...
Sheeny is a drastic... The gap between me and Sheeny in DMs is lesser than the gap that is me and Sheeny as players. Sheeny is so drastically a better player than I am, whereas I am marginally a better DM than Sheeny is. But his DM style is so different to mine.
Yeah, no, I have noticed that.
It's slower, it's voices and accents and all of these kind of tricks, theatre tricks, whereas I tend not to do accents. I do tone of voice or I use phrases quite a lot so they would recognize a character. My big bad guy Lavion, he would constantly call one of the party members beautiful all the time, and then when he was killed, they went to essentially through the 9 layers of hell to get him back. And he was broken into pieces with his fragments of his mind everywhere that they had to piece back together and go through a bit of his psyche to do so and learn more about him. And then in one of those, they didn't know that they were doing that. They didn't know it was him they were after. They were just sent to hell to get this person because they needed his battle skill set to aid them. And it wasn't until like 15 sessions in hell that they were like going through the memory and it's all jumbled up words, blah, 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 and then out of nowhere it's just, oh, you're beautiful.
Yeah.
And they go, ping, wait, no, wait,
Yeah.
no, wait, no, not no, we're not doing that again. Like, we barely got out last time, no. And, you know, it's different DM styles, different skill levels allow you to use different tricks. And I think language is a really easy one to manipulate, especially when you create a pattern of language that a character uses over an accent that a character uses. Like, we can all put on an Eric Cartman voice and hear Eric Cartman, but
it's
if you see someone acting like Eric Cartman, you're going to go, that's fucking Eric Cartman-y of you.
Yeah.
And it's easier to recognise.
I think that...
But harder to pull off.
I think having a, like you said, that certain way the person says, whether it's certain words or, like you said, your beautiful word, it then links it to that person.
Yeah.
So when they hear certain things, I think that's a much better way, in my opinion, because if you do a Welsh accent, it could be any Welsh NPC.
Yeah.
And I think that's because there's a guy, I forget his name now, but he's on TikTok and he does basically improv voice acting, and his whole channel is just like, you want to be a good villain? Let me help you. And he's just talking about pitch and tone and speed of how people things. And he did an improv of a villain's speech, and the person gave him a word and it was honor. And he just went off on a whole villainous arc of just focusing on that one word, honor. And it's like, oh, that's pretty fucking good.
Yeah.
It's just like,
and that's what it is. It's those little tricks like that where you use essentially like one word, like you say, to monologue your villain or to give your hero their speech. You center it around that one thing. So the DC campaign, I went the whole way through using like speed of speech. So the younger characters would speak quicker. The older ones, Rumblebee, would speak very purposefully and slower, and everything he said was like ... whereas the younger characters I played would be all over the place. The only time I ever did voice was the Joker, because I didn't want to describe him, I didn't want to do anything, I just wanted to bring him out and have him be instantly recognized without me having to set the scene.
Very good Joker, by the way. I must admit,
took a lot of practice.
I listened to that because when Jim showed me it on, I was a bit half cut anyway, so I wasn't able to hear it properly that night. But when I listened to it, I was like, "That's a pretty fucking good Joker."
Yeah, it was just simply growing up watching Batman. I was like, "What makes the Joker the Joker?" And instantly, it's like everyone nowadays recognizes that Heath Ledger. Ha 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 ha. And it was just kind of learning where that voice comes from in your throat. It's not perfect, but it was recognizable. It did the job. But I concentrated more on how he speaks than the actual accent and the impression, because the Joker is a menace. So concentrating on your villains and trying to give them a voice, it's a better idea to concentrate on how they would talk, how they would react, what they would say, rather than putting on a voice and just playing NPC number 4 but with an accent.
So it comes back to, like you said at the beginning, know your story. Know your story, know your villains, know your NPCs, know who they are, bring them to life, and be like, you're playing this person, how would they actually react to example A, B, whatever it may be, whatever situation is, how are they going to react to that in that moment?
So D&D current 5e books do a half decent job of actually doing that with bad guys. So don't do it with all NPCs, which is such a shame. But they do it with the villain of the campaign, and it's called When Villain Attacks. And it has Strahd's probably the easiest one to go to. So it's got when Strahd attacks, this is how he attacks. Just take that idea and apply it to other parts of the villain. When Strahd is pissed off, Strahd does this. When Strahd is happy, Strahd does this. When you're overstepping boundaries, Strahd does this. And just keep it consistent. So Lavion has like maybe 10 different settings for different states of being based on what the NPCs are doing. When he gets mad, then he's this. And you just refer to that on the character sheet of your villain, so you know that consistency will be kept for your villain, rather than, oh, he was pissed off last time, but why is he not pissed off this time? It was, this made him happy last time, why is he not happy this time? And consistency for your villains and understanding your villain is the hardest thing to do, because especially if you're playing a pre-written campaign, everyone's Strahd should be the same because it's a pre-written campaign. They're not. They're so wildly different. There are some consistencies that they use in the books, but unless you're homebrewing Strahd, all Strahds should be the same.
But I think that's also where a lot of DMs as well out there, they want to put their own flair on it.
Which is brilliant. And you should, because you should make your campaign different to everyone else's campaign. So when you bump into someone that's played the same as you can go, oh, but my bad guy did this and my bad guy did that. I'm currently running my campaign for another party now, and they're so wildly different. And I mean, they haven't got to Lavion yet, but the way that they deal with NPCs and quests, they're not quest orientated. They want to interact with people. So I've got to spoon in those interactions, these quests. Rather than here's a notice board with some quests on to waste your time. because that's all early D&D 5e books do that. Like, you'll get to a town and it's like quest board. So I don't care about the quest board. I care about the quest.
Yeah.
And if your quests are go fetch me a boar because I'm hungry, or go kill 5 of these because they're causing trouble,
it's mundane.
It's boring.
Yeah,
it's boring. Be creative. Find a way to put those quests into your campaign. Give your villain meaning, and even like spoon bits of your villain's big idea of whatever he's trying to do, she's trying to do. Put it into the smaller details of your world, and those quests are a perfect example of how to do that.
It's what I've been doing on my world at the moment now, because like I said, I want all actions to be
measurable.
Yeah, they've done something, it's going to affect the world.
The consequences.
I've taken, so a lot of my inspiration that I've taken from, I don't know if you've seen the TV shows, was Wheel of Time.
Nope.
Again, really good series on Amazon. I've taken, which was a bit of a shame because they only lasted like a couple episodes, but the Trolloc army, I think I spoke to you about that once as well, so the Minotaurs.
Yes. Yeah.
I've taken them and I've pulled them into my world. They're like ferocious beasts, but I've kind of made them a little bit more multi-layered. There is a more of a sentient being rather than just mindless beasts.
Yeah,
they have.
So they're a bit like the orcs from Lord of the Rings. Like they're the army. They have some thought, but they're not.
They're sort of there. I've got one where I've created like a proper commander. He's like one of the smarter ones, but all the others are a little bit more dumber. But they're not just mindless animals. Just
do they have
rampaging?
A hierarchy,
yes,
like a ranking system.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll suggest something to you. Take it away and use it because it's brilliant. When it comes to your party fighting someone of a higher rank within these minotaurs, if the party lose, don't kill them. Get them down, knock them down, keep them down, let them go free.
Okay.
And then add a level to your bad guy.
Get them stronger so that they've got their own experience.
They level up.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant fucking trick because every time they lose, that person gets fucking ranked up.
Similar to the Lord of the Rings game.
The Shadows of Mordor.
Yeah.
That's exactly where it comes from, and it works beautifully in D&D. Because the generals don't give a fuck. They're just there, and especially if they're like not mindless but not proper coherent.
Yeah.
They're only going to do these basic actions and thought processes, and if one of those is pride, then you can just be like, come back when you're actually fucking worth something.
No, and that's it. So I showed you a couple of the cities and everything. We're in the city White Pass. It's the Western Star military. I've taken the gunslinger subclass from what Matt Mercer made.
Yeah.
I've implemented that. None of them used it, but it's fine. But that whole city is
based around the gunslinger.
Yeah, the military-esque aspect of the place. They've decided to align with Morvain, my original BBEG. Effectively, I've got 2, depending on which way a party would go.
Yeah, as you should.
So they've, instead of fighting the Trolloc army, they're fighting with them. So a little bit different, but we're now at a stage where they were using tactics, and I was like, this is brilliant. I'm getting them out of it because, again, they've never played D&D before, and I'm like, just let go. Just play.
It's the simplest thing to say. It's the hardest thing to do.
And that's the thing. I think we're now there to the point where they're now comfortable with their characters, and they're like, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go up here. So I got one guy, he's just evil in the sense he hasn't fully fleshed out his backstory, and he's like, so it's fine, we can work on who you are as the campaign goes. If you don't need to,
the way it should be. Like we did the same thing.
But the one thing that he came to me, and he was like, because I said to him, I gave him the question, I was like, what is the one thing your character will only, like, what is the one thing that they will strive for? That's their main thing. And he goes, I just want to be able to wish. Make one wish. All right.
Yeah.
Fucking brilliant. Okay, this is good. All right, now I know where your end game for yourself is. It didn't say anything else, because that could lead to anything. It could be he wants to have like ultimate power. So right now, if he gets that wish, that's what he's probably going to wish for. But hopefully, as time changes, something else might change. Maybe he'll make the wish for something else. Save party member, save a beloved NPC,
Yeah,
or
right.
change something.
It's the best thing. That person was. That sounds like Sheeny's character, Tarquin, when we played the original Lavion campaign. Not recorded, sadly, because there was some tears and some very angry moments during that campaign. Much more than the ones in DC.
Sorry, but that would have been amazing.
And it's his character was this. He comes from a rich background.
Yeah.
But his family were trained assassins.
Yeah.
For a king in a up and coming town. Like they found a gold vein. Mm-hmm. And were fucking rich. Like, this town is fucking rich.
Yeah.
But he didn't care about the money, he cared about the title.
Yeah.
So that was his main goal, was to. He was a bard, so he was kind of like this. He was never good at being an assassin. He's got some skill sets from it, but he was never good at it. Yeah. Like, his brother excelled at it, and his parents excelled at it. Like, they were the right hand of the king, and they enacted the king's wishes on all of the other realms around this town. Sheeny's character just wanted to make Daddy proud. And it got to the end where, after a lot had happened, Sheeny's character, I distinctly remember it because we role played where his brother came back for the first time. He was face to face with his brother, and his brother was like, I am fucking disappointed in you. I hate you. Everything you've done is for your own selfish gain. We do what we need to for the kingdom. You're doing it for you. And Sheeny went, no. And me and him were literally like standing up, hands on the table, shouting at each other. And we didn't once say, I do this, I do that. We just did it. We were walking around a table. We were fucking screaming at each other. And the other two were sat there like just silent, being like, what is going on? And then after that conversation, Sheeny then changed from that to they'd been traveling for a little while. They had to travel cross country for about 3 weeks. Okay. And somewhere in one of those camps, because I always kind of skip the camp bit. I like saying you set up camp. Yeah. Food's always available.
Yeah.
Because when it isn't, go hunting. And you get your rest. Is there anything you want to do while you're at camp? And every single time for this 3 week journey, it was no. Till about 2 weeks in, and Sheeny went, yeah, I've got something. I'm just gonna like sit there and I'm gonna fidget with this family heirloom. I think it was something that it belonged to his, like, had his family's crest on it. And when I look at Fran's character, and I just, under my breath, utter, we're not heroes. And he went on this massive monologue of just him shitting on everything they've done. It was like they were called dragon slayers, and he was like, well, in reality, we didn't kill dragons, we destroyed eggs. That was it. Like, there was nothing else. We murdered baby dragons that had no alignment. There was no evil within them. And he went on this massive rant, and his character completely changed from one thing to another. Yeah. Which sounds like what you want this person to do, is to be, I want power, but it comes with experience.
Yeah, whatever they feel naturally.
Yeah.
It's I think it's coming away from that regimented, this is purely just a game, this is how we're going to do...
It's not just a game.
Turn-based style. No. It's it's not a computer game. It's not something that you can just press pause, save, whatever.
No, it can be at its best improv Shakespeare.
Yeah.
At its worst, it's a combat simulator.
Yeah. And that's it. And again, there's nothing wrong there, because you see there's lots of people that are like, oh, I like this. And it's like, well, fine. If you want to do a dungeon crawl, let's do a dungeon crawl. That's fine. We'll do that. We'll smash out 3, 4, 5 different caves, give you the monsters, give you the loot. Done.
Yeah.
That's fine. I can imagine, from what I've seen, it seems like that's what it used to be when it first came out. It was very much...
the origins of D&D started off as a tabletop war game where you move... kind of like a real-time strategy game, Command and Conquer and stuff like that. That's what it started out as. And then it moved from that to having magical parts of it. So you'd have like an army with a wizard, and you'd have an army with this epic ranger. They become heroes of that particular group that you were in charge of. And then it became, well, what if I was the wizard in this battle and just the wizard? And it evolved from that.
Slowly getting into more personal.
To the character rather than the army.
Yeah.
And it was always a versus game, and now it's not.
Yeah, it's
PvP is kind of completely frowned upon, and I don't let it happen. I ban it from my table.
Okay, fair enough.
Because I want players to talk. I think there's more to be had when they're arguing than when they're just swinging swords at each other and casting spells.
I think in my opinion, I think there's a bit more of a fine line with that. I think if I understand correctly, it's more keeping away from the fact of we're just out to kill each other. No. However, I don't mind if they use a little bit of physical activity to get their point across.
Oh yeah, like a shove and stuff like that. But that comes down to your role playing ability.
Yeah.
And I definitely don't allow HP to be depleted or spell slots to be cost. I prefer if they go, well, I'm going to say this to you, and my player looks my character is angry, and their face molds to it, and they do they just talk, and I'm like, I can't believe you. And and if it gets to a shove and draws his sword and stuff like that, so be it. But you're not going to kill each other.
No, and I think that's because obviously it seems to be a lot of people are wanting a little bit more PvP. However, there was one of the episodes, one of the sessions I did with my group, Lorna wasn't feeling too well, so I did a session with just the other two, and it tied in quite nicely with the way the story was going anyway. So I've got a bard and a wizard and a cleric. The bard and the wizard, they hate each other. The bard absolutely despises the wizard. The wizard is the one that wants to find the wish and find ultimate power. Yeah. The bard is just always skeptical of this wizard. So
rightfully so, by the sound of it.
And it's just like, no, I don't fucking trust you. To the point where she tried pickpocketing him because he's got a tome that it's quite powerful. If he uses it right, it will guide him to one of the artifacts. It just depends on what he asks. It's one of those kind of like your true what I use is similar to Captain Jack Sparrow's compass.
Okay. Yep. I used something. I had Captain Jack's compass because they put me on the spot and needed a magical item. Yeah. So I was like, well, there's a compass and it points to always what you want.
Yeah.
And that could be food. It could be somewhere to sleep. It could be something really important, and you don't know until you get there.
Exactly. And this is kind of where I've gone with the book in that sense. So if he uses it correctly, it will find where it needs to go. However, the bard has been so suspicious of this bloody book. So because he's kept it to himself, he's decided not to show anyone what it does. And she's tried to pickpocket him, she's tried to do other stuff, but I've had like opposing roles, and so he's always caught what you're doing, sort of thing. Get out of my
bag. Get out my pockets.
Yeah, this is mine.
Go
away.
The compass got so paranoid because it belonged to Sheeny. They got a magical item each. Fran got a bag of holding. Jim got a bowl that separates anything you put in it to its base components.
Oh, nice.
Which was cool. And Sheeny got the compass. And it got so paranoid. They were using this compass left, right, and centre. Sheeny was constantly whipping this out. So he got so paranoid that the others would want it that he started keeping it in his pants. which was fucking hilarious because he'd be in the middle of a meeting with a king and he'd just see Sheeny's character rummaging in his pants. They were like, this? So, I'm not touching that.
No, what you think?
You're a bard. No.
Oh, bloody hell. So yeah, it came to a point where she put him to sleep. I was in a point, so again, they kind of derailed where my session was going to go, but I came onto it and I created like a little goblin that had a key to get through a gate. But she ended up putting them all to sleep without realizing, because I was like, kind of like trial by fire. And I was like, I want you to read your spells, I want you to understand them as well, because I'm still learning as well. I can't learn every single spell.
No, you can't.
With full understanding. So as soon as she cast sleep, I was like, okay, that's fine. It works. Let's see what the spell does now.
Yeah.
So we had a quick look, and it affected quite a lot of people. It affected the goblin and the wizard. And I was like, they're both now asleep. For, I think it's 1 hour or so that they fall asleep.
Yeah, I think it's 1 hour, yeah.
And I was like, what do you do? She goes, I want to fucking rob him.
So at this point, something I personally do, I had something very similar.
Yeah.
I would have asked whoever was asleep to leave the room.
At that point, I didn't have to, because it naturally worked out that way. Because it's like, well, I'm asleep. I'm just going to nip to the toilet. Yeah. I was like, and then I went to her and said, do you want to do anything? It's like, can I? I was like, you want to rob him, don't you? I was like, yeah. It's like, go on then. So do I need a roll? It's like, he's asleep.
Yeah.
So what you want?
So we had a very, not a similar situation, but one that was kind of like the party separated. It happened twice. One of them was, they were at Jim's home, the Red Abbey, he's a paladin of the Red Abbey, and where he was brought up and trained. And they were sent there to find a book. Because it's got the oldest library in this realm, belongs to the Red Abbey, and they wanted one book. Sheeny learned what the book was without telling the other two. So I sent him, I used to write it down on post notes, and I'd slide him a post note and be like, the book will lead you to the verbal component for Wish.
Yeah.
You still need to get the physical component, but you have the verbal understanding on how to do this. And he kept it to himself. And when we got there, it was an end of a session when we got there, and they were just retiring for the night. They all had their own rooms because they were well looked after. It's obviously Jim's home. They wanted to make everyone feel welcome. So as the party went to sleep, I was like, should we just end it there? And we'll pick it up next week when we meet up. And they were like, yeah, it was like midnight anyway. So Fran went to the toilet. Jim was walking out the door because he had his dog and he was going to take him for a piss or whatever the dog needs to do. And Sheena went, I want the book.
Thanks for joining us on Mind and Mead Dungeon Talk. We hope you savoured rich flavours of our homebrew mead and delved deep into the quests and quandaries that shape our world and stir our spirits. Don't forget to follow us on your favourite podcast platform to never miss an episode of epic adventures and enlightening encounters. Until next time, I have been Sebastian, and you have also been listening to Lestat Grayson from How Not to Summon a Podcast. Keep your tankards topped and your dice ready. Cheers and safe travel.